My name is Rita, and I am 29 years old. 3 days after I gave birth to my daughter alone in a hospital room, my parents walked in and told me to leave. I need you to understand what those 3 days looked like before I tell you what happened next, because without that picture, you will never fully feel the weight of what my mother and father said to me that afternoon. My husband, Liam, died in a house fire 6 weeks before our daughter was born. He was 31 years old. He went back inside to grab the bag I had packed for the hospital because I had been nervous about leaving it behind, and he never came out. The firefighters told me later that the ceiling collapsed in the hallway. He was found near the front door. He almost made it. That detail has lived inside my chest every single day since, like a splinter too deep to reach. He almost made it. I gave birth to our daughter, Nora, at 2:14 in the morning on a Tuesday. There was no one holding my hand. There was no one in the waiting room. There was a nurse named Bev who stayed past her shift and held a cold cloth to my forehead, and I have thought about her kindness almost every day since. I named Nora after my grandmother because Liam and I had agreed on that name months before. Sitting on the floor of the nursery, we had painted together in pale yellow. He had pain on his left ear for 2 days and refused to believe me when I told him. I thought about that while I was pushing. I thought about a lot of things. When they placed Nora on my chest and she made that first sound, something in me cracked open and rebuilt itself at the same time. She had his nose. She still does. My parents arrived on day 2. My mother, Sandra, brought a fruit basket and a balloon that said "It's a girl" in pink letters, and my father, Gerald, stood near the window with his hands in his pockets looking like a man waiting for a bus. They stayed 40 minutes. My mother held Nora once, briefly, and said she was beautiful, and then put her back in my arms like she was returning a borrowed book. My father said the room was cold. They left before dinner and told me to rest. On day 3, they came back. This time they did not bring anything. My father sat down in the chair beside my bed and folded his hands together in that way he has always done when he is about to say something he has already decided cannot be argued with. My mother stood near the door. I was holding Nora, who had just finished feeding and was almost asleep, her little fist curled against her cheek. I remember thinking how small that fist was. I remember thinking that Liam would have taken 100 photographs of that fist. My father spoke first. He said, "Once you recover, you should go back to your in-laws." He said it the way someone says a practical thing, like go left at the intersection or keep your receipts. No pause. No softening. Just the sentence, flat and clean, dropped into the room between us. I looked at him. I did not say anything yet. Then my mother added her part. She said, "You are not our responsibility now, Rita. You are a widow. You have a child. That is a different life." She said it with a kind of tired finality, like she had been rehearsing it and was relieved to finally have it done. I want to tell you that I screamed. I want to tell you that I threw something or said all the sharp and true things that were rising in my throat. But I did not. I held Nora tighter and I said nothing. I had learned a long time ago that my parents respond to emotion by becoming more certain, more sealed. Anything I showed them would only be used to confirm whatever story they had already told themselves about why this decision was reasonable. What they did not know, and what I had not told anyone yet, was that 2 days before I gave birth, I had made a phone call. It was not a call to a friend. It was not a call to Liam's parents, though they had been kind and I loved them. It was a call to a woman I had met only once, at a legal seminar I attended 3 years earlier when I was still working in property management. Her name was Caroline Marsh, and she was a family rights attorney. I had kept her card in the back of my phone case because something about the way she spoke that day made me think, someday I might need someone like her. I did not know then what I was preparing for. Maybe some part of me did. I called Caroline from the hospital bathroom at midnight, with Nora asleep in the bassinet on the other side of the door. I told her everything. About Liam. About the fire. About my parents and the things they had been saying in the weeks before the birth. About the life insurance policy that Liam's brother had already started making inquiries about, claiming Liam had promised him something, which was not true. Caroline listened to all of it without interrupting. Then she asked me 3 questions, and by the end of the call she told me she would be there. So when my father finished his sentence and my mother finished hers, and the room went quiet except for Nora breathing, I looked at both of them and I said, I already made a call. And then I picked up my phone and sent one message. 2 words. Come now. The door to my hospital room opened 12 minutes after I sent that message. I know it was 12 minutes because I had been watching the clock above the television the way you watch a clock when you are trying to stay calm and you need something steady to fix your eyes on. My father was still sitting in the chair beside my bed. My mother had moved from the door to the window, and she was looking out at the parking lot with her arms crossed, the way she always stands when she wants to appear unbothered, but is actually very aware of everything happening behind her. Neither of them had spoken since I said I already made a call. I think my tone surprised them. I had not raised my voice. I had not cried. I had simply said it the way Caroline would have said it, like a fact that required no decoration. Caroline Marsh walked in first. She was exactly as I remembered her from that seminar 3 years earlier. Tall, composed, dark hair pulled back, wearing a charcoal blazer over a white shirt. She carried a leather folder under one arm, and she moved through the doorway like someone who had walked into difficult rooms many times before and had never once been the most uncomfortable person in one. Behind her came 2 men in uniform. Not police officers. They were from the County Social Services Department, and Caroline had brought them as witnesses, which I would later understand was a very deliberate and very intelligent choice on her part. She had spent the 2 days since my midnight phone call preparing. I had not known how much until that moment. My father stood up from the chair. I watched his face change. It went through several things in a very short time, confusion first, then a reaching for authority, then something closer to alarm when he looked at the 2 uniformed men and could not immediately place them. My mother turned from the window. Her arms dropped to her sides. Caroline did not introduce herself to them right away. She came to me first. She looked at Nora in my arms and said, "She is beautiful, Rita," and she meant it. And then she straightened and turned to face my parents, and she introduced herself clearly, stating her name, her firm, and that she was representing me in several matters, including the estate left by my late husband Liam, the insurance dispute that his brother had initiated without legal standing, and the formal documentation of certain communications made to me by my next of kin in the days following my delivery, which she described as communications she intended to have thoroughly examined. My mother said, "We were just talking." Her voice was smaller than I had ever heard it. Caroline opened her leather folder. She did not look up when she responded. She said that talking was fine and that everything said in private conversations between family members was generally protected, but that when those conversations involved directing a recently widowed mother 3 days postpartum to vacate her family home and relinquish herself to her deceased husband's relatives, while simultaneously disclaiming any parental responsibility, there were several legal frameworks under which that conversation became relevant documentation. She said it all without raising her voice. She said it the way someone reads a weather report. I had never loved a stranger more in my life. My father tried to speak twice. The second time he actually formed words. He said that they had not meant it the way it sounded. Caroline looked at him then, fully, and said that she understood, and that the 2 gentlemen present were simply there to ensure that my discharge process over the coming days was handled appropriately and that no pressure of any kind was placed on me regarding my living arrangements, my finances, or my choices as Nora's sole parent. She said the word soul with a specific quietness that landed in the room like something heavy set down on a table. Then my father did something I had never seen him do in my entire life. He walked toward the door. Not with dignity. Not with anger. He walked the way a person walks when they have suddenly understood that the ground they were standing on was never as solid as they believed. My mother followed him without looking at me. She paused once, near the end of the bed, and I thought she might say something. She looked at Nora. Whatever she felt in that moment, she kept it and walked out. Caroline stayed for 2 hours. We went through everything. The insurance policy, which was entirely in my name as Liam had intended. The house, which had been rented and was no longer an issue. The small savings account Liam had kept that his brother had been incorrectly claiming joint ownership of. By the time Caroline left, She had given me a folder of my own, and inside it was a future that I had not been able to see clearly from the hospital bed 3 days earlier when I was holding my daughter alone in the dark. I want to tell you what happened after, because life did not become simple. It became real, which is different. My in-laws, Liam's parents, welcomed Nora and me with a generosity that still makes me emotional when I think about it. His mother said, "You are not a widow who came to us out of necessity. You are our daughter who came home." I cried for a long time after she said that. Good crying. The kind that cleans something out. My parents reached out 4 months later. My father sent a letter. I read it once and I have not read it again. I am not ready, and I have made peace with not being ready. Nora is my first priority, and she always will be. She is 7 months old now and she laughs with her whole body, the way Liam used to, and every time she does it I feel him in the room. I share this story not because I want sympathy. I share it because somewhere out there is another woman sitting in a hospital room holding a baby and being told by someone who should love her that she is not their responsibility. I want her to know that one phone call can change the entire direction of a room. I want her to know that there are people who will walk through that door.